Good evening and welcome to the Emerson Institute at City of Light. I'm Reverend Dr. Paul Gretz and I'm welcoming you to our class on the Infinite Way, based on the book by Joel S. Goldsmith. Tonight's class is class number 11 and 12, and it concludes this series. It's been a wonderful journey of discovery of amazing spiritual enrichment truths for our life, enriching every day through the understanding of the power of the infinite way within our lives. Well, as we begin tonight's class, I hope that you have your note packet ready, a pen or paper, additional notes, that you've got maybe a cup of coffee or whatever, and you're ready to dig into tonight's class. To prepare for that, let's just take a deep breath. Let me remind you also, if you are needing a note packet, you've not received one, reach out to me at revtpaul@aol.com. I'll see that our registrar, Dr. David Carter, distributes and emails out all the note packets prior to every class session. It'll help you follow along with our study, and they're a great resource to look back on. They're sort of the cliff notes of the chapter. Let's prepare for tonight's class, and let's do so by taking some deep breaths. We're going to center ourselves in this moment and how important it is that we do this, because there's been a lot of distractions in your life this day. I know that. It's just like every day. There's been a lot of things that are taking you away from being present in this moment. And as we focus on our breath and we focus on our breathing, we're brought into this now, into this moment right here and now. And it is in this moment, in this present moment, that we begin to understand and know and are open to receiving all the goodness that God has for us in tonight's session. So let's join in a breathing exercise where we breathe in through our nose, hold through a brief moment, and then breathe out through our mouth. We're going to do this 3 times to just sort of allow us to focus on our breath and become present in this moment. Join with me. Let's breathe in and release. A deep breath in and release. Deep breath in and release. And in this moment of silence, set your intention for that which you desire to transpire in your life during this time that we share together. Just begin to whisper it within. What would you like to receive? What would you like to experience? And so it is. As we've named or set that intention, we know that the universe is matching the very desires of our heart that we've expressed or set intention. So we welcome this experience tonight. This is class number 11. Isn't it exciting to join in the Dr. Angelo Pizzello Wisdom Center here at City of Light? I love this space. I'm surrounded by volumes and volumes of amazing truth. This is one of the largest lending libraries in America today of metaphysical studies. It's a lending library, not a library of just sources or resources for your life that you can come and view, but you can actually out these books, take them home, study, and really experience the personal journey of having a book that can speak to you in a powerful way. And of course, it's free of charge. So we love to have people reaching out to us to join us in the Dr. Angelo Pizzello Wisdom Center as well. And it's a great room for teaching, workshops, all kinds of experiential opportunities in our spiritual growth. If you're interested or need space for a workshop or event, hey, reach out to welcome you as part of our collaborative partners here at City of Light. Let's dig in. It's class number 11, part 2 on the wisdom of the infinite way. Now, the mere reading of truth is but an acquisition of knowledge, not a deepening and enriching of consciousness. It is the deepened and enriched consciousness which is the Christ unto our experience. We do not live on a mortal plane of consciousness where evil can happen. Now, the author is opening up with these statements in this chapter as we move through. We're engaging in a deepened and enriched consciousness, which is the Christ. Now again, let's back up and make sure we understand the word Christ. Christ is not Jesus's last name. He was not a child of Mr. and Mrs. Christ. It is an awareness, an awakening. We all have the opportunity to experience the Christ. The Christ is that awakening within us, that a wonderful understanding of our sonship, of who we are as being heirs to the divine, an awakening experience to everything that is there available to us, for an understanding that I and the Father are one, as Jesus taught as our great example. He's offering that same teaching for us, that we embrace. I and the Father, I and the divine source are one. There is a oneness. So we are discovering this deepened and enriched consciousness, this deepened and enriched awareness, which is the Christ. Now, we don't live on a mortal plane of consciousness where evil can happen. Any response on a lower plane than pure consciousness or pure awareness or pure understanding is from one's self, that lower self, rather than one's higher self. Any response on a lower plane, if we are thinking about evil in our world, if we're embracing evil or thinking there's something evil around us, this is coming from the lower self, not the higher self in us. That higher self being that sense of awareness of our sonship, of our divinity, of being one with God. It is a mistake to believe that human desire and prayer will bring God to our side. We know that God is ever present. So are we thinking that God is going to be drawn to us through the power of prayer? This past weekend, I had a wonderful time to meet with several people who are just beginning to awaken in their spiritual lives. But they're struggling, constantly saying, I need to reach out to God, and I'm trying to invite God into my life. But what I've been teaching them is to understand it's not about inviting God out, because we're created in this divine image and likeness. And that's a difficult thing for a lot of people to understand, because that passage of teaching from the ancient truths in Genesis seems to be so overlooked. And we don't quite understand that because our focus is more upon all we like sheep have gone astray, that we all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. And we're not really realizing our innate nature. We are created in this image and likeness of God, and that presence of God is deep within us. We are one. Now, we may not be awakened to that. That's the challenge. We might not be fully aware of that, and that's the challenge. So we're each on a different path, and we're on that path until that pathway comes to a place where, like, oh, I don't know if I like this path. This path isn't taking me where I want to go. And so and if that path doesn't work for them and it's not taking them where they want to go, they choose another path. So you see, what I want to say is that all paths are leading us, they're guiding us, and they're taking us to this place of understanding in our life. So we may find people on this path or that path or whatever path it may be, but they're all going to be directing us and leading us to the same place. Now, what happens is that some people will try a path of maybe more biblical literalism. But after a while, as they study and they're seeking understanding, they find that that path is not working for them. So they shift to a path that's maybe more metaphysical, understanding it in a more beyond the spirit, beyond the physical, into the spiritual level of interpretation of Scripture. And that path may work for them. So it's like all these things are about our journey. For our life is a journey. It's not a destination. So it's not like there's something that we're working to come to an end for, but that we're always on this wonderful journey of pathways. So when we begin to look at a pathway that says, wait a minute, is there not evil in this world? And where does this evil come from? It's about us giving power or recognition to those things of the lower self. And when we do, what we're doing is we're giving power to evil. Evil will not exist if you don't give it power. So what happens is this, it's illustrated by when the light shines, where does the darkness go? The darkness has no power. The darkness cannot overcome the light, for the light is the bright beacon that removes all darkness. And so there is not a competition between light and darkness. Light will always win. Darkness will always dissipate when there is the light. And so it is good will always reign within our life, will always be victorious within us. If we give up this battle, if we give up this idea that somehow evil might overcome good, and how crazy it is to think that God might create evil and that God is the instigator of evil, or some people may believe that evil is there constantly in battle with the good, and that many times evil wins over the good. And it's that as if God were not powerful and almighty to overcome any kind of evil. It's just in the absence of God that the darkness rises. It's in the absence of our awareness of the purity of love and the goodness of God that evil begins to rise within our world. So in the power of love, when we're sharing this power of love, we can be so transformational in our world. We can change ourselves first and foremost as we embrace this loving power of God within us. And then that loving power being acted out and demonstrated in word, thought, and deed, transforming energy that changes the world. And as we sow love, we reap love back. It comes back to us. So when we begin to look at the world from this perspective and say, let's let go of the lower self, the ego, the human self. Let's rise to the spiritual self. And let's understand that when we do, we are living in this Christ consciousness. And there is less and less of us putting any kind of energy towards any thoughts of evil. And it begins to dissipate and go away. As we become more and more the light, the darkness disappears. As we become more and more the love, the evil disappears within our world. It's a mistake to believe that human desire and prayer can bring God to our side. So what we understand is that God has never left us. God is ever present. God is with us, never leaving or forsaking us. So sometimes people talk about backsliding in their religious traditions, where they felt like God left them. When they backslided, the Spirit of God left them onto their own evil ways and their own evil thoughts. God never leaves us, nor forsakes us. It is we who may make that choice to be less aware, less in tune, less aligned with, less connected with this divine presence that's always there. So it's a mistake to think that we can beg God or bring God to our side. There must be a rising in our consciousness, an awareness in our consciousness, an awakening within our consciousness that's getting brighter and brighter and brighter until God's presence is attained, and we will just simply rest there in that divine presence. Meaning that when we're rising in our consciousness, God is present. God is here. God is within me. God is expressing as me. God is in me, expressing as me. And when I begin to understand this presence is right here at all times, well, I can simply rest in that presence. Rest in that knowing. Rest in that goodness. That presence of God is all-powerful, all-knowing, ever-present. There is a perfect peace within our lives. Resting is when we've come to this perfect peace, and that perfect peace is always available to us. We must rise in our awareness of that perfect peace and say, there is perfect peace innately within me. I just need to recognize it, awaken to it, and release any attachments to all the things that are sending out waves or vibrations or frequencies of a lower essence, that want to be disturbing to my energy and to my presence, to my very spirit. I release all those because I'm fully aware that perfect peace is available to me. I've told you that God is not with mortals. Take it from there, says Joel Goldsmith. I've told you that God is not with mortals. Take it from there. The reason all desire is sin is that desire is based on the concept of giving or a withholding God. So let's just talk about this, expressing here. It's not God in the physical, it's God within us in the spiritual being manifested because of that within our mortal world. It is our spiritual connection, not a physical connection, but in that spiritual connection, there is a physical experience. But it starts with a wonderful awareness of the Spirit of God within us. It starts there, and then it manifests out into our physical being. We feel the love. We sense the love within our body. We feel this healing. We feel this power and presence. We feel this perfect peace within us. So it's not that it's just with mortals. It's the essence of the soul that is immortal that God is dwelling in. And when we understand that God is not withholding anything, we kind of create this idea that, it's wrong to desire something because we think, well, God doesn't want it. God deals out certain things. We'll kind of deal it out slowly if you deserve it. But here we have this concept that in some way that God is withholding, and we need to plead, beg, or beseech God to get God to do something generously or kindly. Or Dr. David Carter, you've got a question.
Yes, that comment is just kind of disturbing because he just makes a blanket statement that the reason all desire is sin. All desire is not sin.
Right.
But so it's kind of hard to grasp what he's really meaning.
Right.
In that statement.
So that's a very good question. So let's break that down. I love this, and thank you for bringing that up. Let's make sure we've got this really clear. The reason all desire is sin, okay? Now, all desire is not sin,
Right.
but the reason would be this, that if you think God is withholding in some way, then you desire something that you think God is not there to give. So, and that's the error or the sin. Now, if we know that God is not withholding, then we know that we're not in need because God already knows our desire and is already meeting that beforehand. But it becomes sin, which is error thinking, only when we think that God is withholding something from us. So it is not sinful or wrong to desire, especially when we want to desire the highest and best. We want to expand our life. We want to expand the goodness. So we desire more of this goodness. There's nothing wrong with that. It's only, and because that's coming from the idea that God is generous and already giving. But the error or the sin is when we think God's withholding. And so we're, please God, I'm begging. Oh, would you please? Oh God, would you listen to me? Would you wake up and listen to me? Because I don't know, it seems like you're withholding goodness from me. God never withholds anything from us. Now, we may experience these things in our life where you may be believing for one thing, but the universe has something even better for you. That's why I encourage you to embrace the very thinking of this or something better while you're praying. Because the no that you may be experiencing is maybe taking you to a higher level and opening up a door to an even better yes. So we know that the generosity of God is ever unfolding within our lives. It's ever there. So his statement, I love that. Thank you for letting us take a moment out to clarify that. The reason all desire is sin, and the only reason it would be that it would be an error, is that the desire is based on an idea that God is withholding. Now, all attempts to contact God through the mind or intellect have failed and always will fail, for God can be known only through the soul and the soul faculties. So, to refrain from seeking the help of God is to be functioning in reality. No longer reaching out to God, I'm begging, no longer seeking God to help us, is to be awakening out of this dream into the reality that I'm not seeking, I'm not begging, I don't have to plead. God already is. The divine already is. And that's what's so difficult for people to understand, because they firmly are embedded in a thinking of separation theology, and they're feeling very separate in so many ways, as if God is distant and removed. But God is not distant and removed. You are one with the divine. You are one with this source. You are one with the goodness of God. You are one with all of this. And so when we understand that, then there is an awakening to this wonderful goodness. And we don't have to seek the help of God in the sense of like begging or pleading. God already is. And how about we just relax and claim? That's right. There's a big difference between seeking and begging and just simply back and say, I claim, I'm fully aware. God is at work right now. Healing is at work right now. Blessing is at work right now. Goodness is at work right now. I claim this rock that binds us all together, for in everything and in all things, God is to be found. Now, the things that we perceive with the five senses, they're objects of the mind with no relationship to truth. We may be perceiving all these things through the five senses, but they're just objects of the mind. The sense world, human experience, takes place in time and space, and this in itself precludes its being spiritual in nature. So again, what the author's trying to bring out, we live in a spiritual world and we're having a physical experience. You are in the world, but not of the world. The ancient scripture was trying to teach us that we are in this world, yes, as physical beings, but we're not of the world. We are this spiritual being. And so all these things that we're perceiving from the five senses that we're experiencing are results or the effects of the cause, and that cause is within us, and that is that spiritual experience within us, where we're awakened, where we're aware, where we live by faith and we claim, and so it is, and we live by faith and we begin to know that good is present, peace is present, love is present, even when our world may seem to give us messages on the contrary. So what we want to understand then is the author is bringing about living the law of attraction life. You can change everything, but until you change your mind, nothing changes. Wow, that is so true. Until you change your mind and you change your thinking about, you can do everything you want to try to change the world, but it all is happening within. So changing your behavior is really hard. Most people never develop or discover their talents or discover lots of good things within them because they're trying to change their behavior, and it's so difficult. I met someone who is actually working on sort of an Overeaters Anonymous diet plan. And it's based on, sort of, shall we say, the big book of Alcohol Anonymous. It's on that similar, but it's always bringing out this spiritual truth of a higher power within us. And it's a wonderful tool that has been inviting him to think differently in thought and in mind, to think differently, to change his thinking about food, that the end result is he changes his behavior. He worked for a long time trying to lose weight by trying to change behavior, but still unable to change his mind. So the beauty of his program and its great success is that he's changed his thinking about food, and suddenly his behavior is changing, and he is now losing weight very quickly. So when you step into your fears and push yourself, something amazing goes on. So you see, people are rewarded in public what they practice for years in public. When you step into those fears and you push yourself, well, there can be something amazing going on, that you're pushing yourself in the midst of all those things that you've been afraid of, but you're pushing yourself through that fear into the peace. You're pushing yourself through those experiences, not staying there, not setting up camp in fear, but pushing yourself through. And you'll be rewarded in public what you practice for years in public. So just remember that if you're fearful in public and you speak in fear and you talk fear in public, well, that's what you're practicing. Now, if you practice love, you speak love, you're going to experience that in the public context as well. You're attracting things according to your thought. So if you're thinking a certain way, know that you're going to attract what you are thinking. I ran into some people who are very fear-based about our nation right now. And that fear is just producing even more fear. They're manifesting more fear within their world and their families and their home and their own thinking. It's only until they begin to change their mind and release the fear that any kind of change in their behavior or their life or their world can really take place. So it's really important that we begin to push ourselves through these things to coming to the other side, to come to the place where we are pushed through fears, to come to the place of great love. Now, we don't know how much time do we have left. Most of us do not use the stuff that we brought into this universe. We don't use it all. So you have to learn how to become creative, how to manifest, how to be a co-creator with God. You can face defeat again and again without giving up when you have this wonderful energy within you. So let's just talk about his statements here that Quite often we're not using the stuff that we've already brought with us into this universe. You have an incredible tool belt, shall we say, of great gifts and talents. And part of that is the power to choose and to choose wisely. It's an amazing tool. Choose wisely every single day, the highest and best for your journey. If you're not making choices, you're not using that tool. That's a powerful gift that's been given to you. That's a perfect example that we don't always use all the God-given gifts that have been given to us in this journey of our life. And so we have to learn to be these manifestors. We have to learn it all over, although it's already innately within us. We've got to learn how to do the work of being a co-creator with God. And it only happens when we are fully determined not to quit. There is a greatness in you, and you have to tune out all these critics. So don't quit in your experience of this law of attraction at work within your life. Allow it to be that what you're setting out there is going to match with your thoughts, with your words, with your actions. You're setting that forth, that kind of energy is going to attract a matching manifestation in your world. So I encourage you to take time out to do an analysis and saying, what kind of signals have I been sending out to the world? What kind of things, because I'm not attracting maybe what I really want. So I have to rethink, how do I learn to attract what I really desire within my life? I will tell you this, as you're learning for clarity and you're trying to figure out what is you really want, the universe will bring you in the law of opposites. So you're going to experience things that you go, ooh, this is showing me what I don't want, helping me to be more clear about what I do want. So when we become more clear about what we do want, we're going to attract what we really want. Now, you are unstoppable. Most of us go through life with our brakes on. That's so true. Have you ever pulled out from a parking spot and you still left the parking brake on? And you're wondering why the car is not moving and what's going wrong? Well, that's so true that we have, in our doubts, in our fears, go through life with the brakes on. That we're afraid of powerful manifestations happening within our life. We're afraid to release all the goodness and to use all the tools that we've been innately given. So I want to encourage you to tell yourself that nothing is going to stop you. Nothing is going to stop you. You're going to grow, you're going to mature, you're going to move forward in so many ways, but nothing is going to stop you because you are going to be that ever ongoing seeker of this wisdom. So even if you're saying, I don't quite understand it all right now, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep pursuing. I'm going to push through my fears, and I'm going to push through to something amazing unfolding for me. Now, the only thing that will change your life, well, raise your standard. Your life can be too big to play too small. You are too big to play too small. Raise your standards. So many people are like, well, I'll be lucky if I just get this. I'll believe for just something small. I want to encourage you, there's nothing wrong with starting out in exercising your faith and believing for some small things. But then begin to raise your standards and know that when you've manifested and brought about the small things, how about the even bigger things? So I want you to raise your standards to say, I'm not here to play small. No, I'm here to play big. I'm raising my standards. And I know that God is not withholding anything from me, that the goodness of God is available to me. So I just need to begin to believe and walk in that belief and allow that belief to be the energy that's attracting exactly what I desire. Now, I want to encourage you that people who don't have goals work for people who do. Big statement. We've got to have some goals in our life and set direction. If you're not, everybody else will decide the goals for you. So, the pro goes to work no matter what, and this is what I do. And everyone says I should work out, but it's only when our should becomes I am, then that something actually changes. So when we understand in this road to setting some goals, we have to begin to move from with a consistency, a faithfulness, a persistence, a discipline that says I'm here not to give up. So like you're going to the gym and people say, oh, you should work out, you should work out. I should. But it's only when our should becomes, I am working out. I am doing these things. No matter what you desire in your life, it's only when you begin to say, I am, and not I should. I posted on Facebook that I'm writing a book about all the things I should do in life. It's an autobiography, not an autobiography. So when we think about life, boom, thank you, Steve. It is this awareness that sometimes we're always the shoulds. But how about writing the book about I am? And you're living from the I am, not I should. Big difference in our life. So the road to success is the road of commitment. You need a clear vision. You can have the best plans, but the pilot must really know where he's going. The best plane, but he's got to know where he's going. You can have the best vehicle, but you got to know where you're going. So set your mind to it. It's a mindset, that's right. Neither hot nor cold, the scripture says. It's that person who's like wishy-washy. You haven't really decided what you want to do. Begin to proclaim, I am, and fill in the blank. I am healthy. I am whole. I am working out. I am exercising. I am eating right. Whatever. We begin to be, not I should, but the I am, and that becomes our mindset. Intentionally pay attention to good. Train yourself to look for the good in every situation. That's going to be an amazing asset for your life. When you look for the good in every situation, you begin to understand the lessons that life is trying to teach us. As we move on, let's go on to our next chapter, and this is chapter number 12. And we're going here, and this continues on with a class on the chapter, The New Horizon. The substance of this world is eternal consciousness, or awareness of what is true and everlasting. The substance all around us is this wonderful substance. And it is the awareness, this understanding. God is here. God is present. God is at work. God is not withholding. God is manifesting and working, and I am a manifester, and I begin to come from that mindset, and I understand that I'm working with the very substance of this world, this eternal consciousness, and all temporal conditions and experiences. Well, they're a product of self-hypnotism, what we believe or what we convince ourselves to be true. The self has hypnotized us into believing certain things. Example, the self has taught us, I don't have, I need, I lack, I'm not worthy. We sort of self-hypnotized our very thoughts, our mind. We've convinced ourselves to believe that these things are true. Let me tell you this. We find all these people who are living in fear in our world today. And they have convinced themselves, hypnotized themselves to believe that fear reigns in everything. So they become very skeptical of everything. And rather than allowing the goodness of God to be there, they've hypnotized themselves into believing that the world is working against them rather than working for them. And you know what? If that's what you believe, it is certainly true. In an uplifted consciousness, we're able to see ourselves free from the material and the mortal human laws. We live beyond these things. The world may be this physical world of all these manifestations that we should be afraid of this and afraid of that, but we live beyond that in the spiritual. And I give no power to that fear. I give no power to this whatsoever. Instead, I'm living from the divine perspective that all things are good. So it's not a Pollyanna, stick your head in the sand kind of thing. It's simply a belief in the spiritual realm that is beyond this physical, beyond this. And we're called to live in that spiritual realm, not in the physical. So you are what you are. A magnificent, multidimensional being of light compressed into this physical form? Yes. You are what you are to help raise the consciousness of others, of this collective, of this community, of our world. And you are what you are to share your truest nature, your essence, to the whole world. This is who you are in your highest and uplifted consciousness. When we understand what the author is bringing on, I hope you read this chapter because it's so rich, and we really want to understand this, that we're raising our consciousness, and when we do that, we're impacting the world around us. We're proclaiming, yes, there is peace on earth, and yes, it begins with us. And that peace surpasses all fear and overcomes all fear, because that peace is a brilliant light that removes the darkness of fear within us. So here then are 25 tidbits of higher consciousness. Here they are. In our note packet, let's look at them. Number 1, the only real problem in your life is how you're using your mind. Woo, wow. The only real problem in your life is how you've allowed your thoughts to go, to travel, where they go, what you've allowed to entertain. Number 2, you always have enough to be happy. It's the patterns in your head that make you unhappy. It's these thoughts that will make you unhappy, but you already have everything you need. Happiness is not necessarily found in physical, material things. Happiness is a feeling that you can embrace at any moment of your life when you choose. Number 3, the views of others as unfolding beings in their journey towards higher consciousness. View others as unfolding beings. Let's break that down. View others, see others as unfolding beings in their journey. They're all on a pathway. So just view them as they're like roses in a tight bud, opening up, ready to bloom. But they're on their journey, and let them be on their journey. Let them process it. Oh my Lord, how many people want to save the world? They want to force people to think their way of thinking. They want to manipulate, massage, or just do anything they can to get people to think their way of thinking. But we're all on a wonderful journey. And what we're called to be is just simply a witness to express, not to convince, not to manipulate someone to believe, but to express what we are. I love this from this year of the AA program. They said over and over again, inviting people to this program is all about an attraction, not a promotion, okay? In other words, we're not big signs, hey, join AA, hey, join us, or join this group, or be part of this group, big flashing lights and advertisements in papers and all, but what attracts people to the program is the success of the people. And I said, oh my Lord, I love that. Because as a church, quite often we're thinking, how do we market this? How do we let people know where we are? We want more people coming to understand this powerful teaching. Well, how will you attract them? By ads in a newspaper? Oh, how about you attract them by them seeing the evidence in your life of the teaching at work? You will impact the world the greatest by living it out, by practicing what you believe. One of the problems is we don't want to practice what we believe. We just like to learn more about what to believe. But the key is we've got to practice it. And when we practice it, we become this brilliant light that attracts people. How'd you do that? How did that happen for you? How do you have such peace in your life? How are you so calm in the midst of this storm? How is it that you have found such joy and happiness and contentment? How is it that you are such a great manifester of goodness? How is it that all these things are happening? Well, you see, people will come not because of some promotion, but they'll come because they're attracted to what is really going on, what is happening. Number 4, think of the world as a loving place that is designed to give you everything that you need. Wow. Begin to think from that perspective. Number 5, you add to the suffering of the world when you take offense, just as much as when you do as you give offense. So, don't allow yourself to be a victim or to be wounded. Those things that people say and do, and know that you know who you are, even though they may think that you are less than, you know that you are the divine creation. You are God expressing in this moment. And so don't take offense, and certainly don't retort by giving offense. Number 6, happiness does not lie in getting people and things outside of you lined up exactly to suit your desires. Ooh, that's a good one. We want to line everybody up to be like the way we want them to be, and we think that's going to bring us happiness. But happiness doesn't lie in that. Number 7, an addiction is any emotion-backed demand that you may have. It's any desire that makes you upset or unhappy if it's not satisfied. And your addictions are your attachments, demands, expectations, emotional programming, and the models of how life should treat you. So a lot of people think, oh, I'm not an addict. You'd be surprised when you look at this of what all you're addicted to. When it breaks it down, you're addicted to this emotional demand that you may have, and your desire that makes you upset or unhappy if it's not manifested. So as an example, if you get angry when someone cuts you off in traffic as you drive to work, it's because you're addicted to having a smooth and completely hassle-free trip to work. And if you get upset when you ask your friend to help and they respond that they can't help because they're busy, it's because you're addicted and you're mad because you're used to having people acquiesce to your requests. So think about your addictions. Number 8, life is warning you to get rid of an addictive or addiction every time you are emotionally uncomfortable in any way. And number 9, upgrade your addiction preferences. Here's the distinction between addiction and preference. When an addiction is satisfied, you feel momentary pleasure or indifference. If an addiction is not satisfied, you feel emotional distress. When a preference, I prefer this, but if not, a preference is I prefer this. And when it's not satisfied, you're simply indifferent. It was only a preference after all. But when it's satisfied, it adds to the texture and beauty of your life. You see the difference between addiction and preference? But we remove things from being addictions and move them up to, I would prefer, but if it doesn't happen, I'm okay. It's just a preference. I would prefer an easy pathway to work in traffic, but if I don't have it, I'm not going to be upset. I'm not going to have my life destroyed by it. Number 10, allow yourself emotion-backed demands only for physical necessities such as air to breathe, food if starving, and shelter freezing. These emotionally backed demands, let them only be centered around the air you breathe, food if you're starving, and shelter. Number 11, if your washing machine stops working and you're addicted to appliances that work, you're going to get upset and you will suffer. If you prefer that your appliances work well, then when your washing machine breaks down, you won't compound the problem by superimposing your uncomfortable emotions on the situation. Dr. Carter.
So then is an expectation an addiction? Because when you buy an appliance like a washing machine, you expect it to work.
Right.
So is that an addiction? The expectation that...
Yeah, I mean, we all have that expectation, but when it doesn't, when it fails our expectation, are we angry? Or we go, I would have loved to have it work, but it didn't. And I'm going to work through the experience of it not working because it's maybe bringing me to a new level of my higher and better things. So maybe this machine's not working because something better is there. That happened to me this year. Actually, what happened is I believe the electrician had come to my house and he had actually shut off the fuse box. And turning all the fuses on, he did not turn the fuse on for my washing machine. So I'm going to use my washing machine. It's not working. And the mechanic says, it's crazy. Why is it not working? I mean, the power was on everywhere except this one fuse. I went out and bought a new one. And I'm like, why do I have to buy a new one? But you know what? I'm going to buy a new one because I am blessed with a new one. Well, I got a new one with an even bigger and more efficient water-saving capabilities and a huge drum where I could throw in my comforter, and oh wow, I just love the blessing of this all. I'm like, okay, wow. What was a simple thing that I found out later was just, oh, flick the switch. So that washing machine I gave away really did work. But through it all, I got something even better that I absolutely love and find more efficient for me and meeting my needs with this huge drum. I can load a whole lot more in the huge drum machine than I could in the smaller one. Saves me a lot of time. I'm blessed. So did I get upset because the expectation of that machine working failed? No, that's the principle. Is it wrong to expect? No, we expect and we want, as long as that expectation doesn't irritate us, I think it's great to say we should live in expectation of goodness around us, of God blessing, But when some difficulty comes, a stone in our pathway, something along the road of life that's a bump, do we get upset and we give up on expectations of goodness? No. We know that there's goodness to go through as we move through the bump in the road, as we overcome the stone, that it's there helping us through in our refining process. Number 12, there is nothing that you can do to change the present moment. It simply is. You may be able to change the situation 1 second, 1 minute, 1 hour, or 1 day from now, but there's absolutely nothing that you can do to change the way things are here and now. By not getting irritated, you'll be more effective in doing what needs to be done to change the situation in the next moment. So that higher consciousness is ever awakening us. Are you allowing this to irritate you, to bother you, to take away your peace? When a tire blows, do you simply accept that this is the here and now reality of your life? You've lost the tire, but that doesn't mean that you have to lose your peace and serenity. Now, serenity begins to take the necessary steps in order to change the tire. So are you in that serenity? Are you in that peace? Number 14, giving up an addiction means reprogramming that part of your brain that makes you restless and unhappy if desire is not realized. Number 15, keep in mind that you don't need to be addicted to money in order to acquire it. Ooh, wow. You can prefer to have money, and you will then be able to enjoy whatever money you receive. But your happiness will not be contingent on the size of your bank account. Number 16, we see things not as they are, but as we are. Your addictions distort how you process the enormous flow of information that is constantly flooding in and through all your sensory inputs. We see things as we are. Are we irritable? Are we easily irritated? Are we easily put out? That's how we're going to see things and experience things. Number 17, by tuning into your minute-to-minute stream of consciousness, you discover the addictions that make you worried, anxious, resentful, uptight, afraid, angry, bored, etc. Well, you thus use every uncomfortable emotion as an opportunity for consciousness growth. Even though you may feel or still be feeling emotional and uptight, you begin to get at the roots of your ups and downs, your brief bits of pleasure, and your long periods of unhappiness. Begin to look through this. Number 18, all there is in your life is the eternal now moment. And your experience of this moment is created by the programming in your head. So if you're programmed towards being irritated, this moment may be very irritating. If you're programmed to be upset, if you're programmed to be angry, if you're programmed to be bored, those are going to be the manifestations that you're going to experience. Watch your own body and mind and the people and the things surrounding you from the deep, calm place inside you. When you do this, you'll have insights as to what you need to do in order to flow with the river of life around you. Number 20, if you can make really effective changes, you can. When your consciousness is free of all this emotion and anger and all these feelings that you allow to come into your life, Number 21, by fully tuning into the now moment of your life, you will discover that you've always have enough to enjoy every moment of life. The only reason that you've not been happy every instant is that you've been dominating your consciousness with thoughts about something that you don't have, or you're trying to hold on to something that you do have, but no longer is appropriate in the present flow of your life. So the reason you're unhappy, well, you're allowing this kind of thoughts to come into your life. Whenever you're unhappy, your emotions are telling you that the people or things around you are not conforming to your vision, your way of seeing things of this world, or the way you think things should be. And that contributes to a lot of our unhappiness. You stop viewing yourself as being pushed around by the world when you realize that only you can push yourself. To quote Buddha, nothing is upsetting you. You get upset because you're upsettable. Good wisdom. If you want those around you to act in a more loving and conscious manner, act in a way that helps them to do so. And number 25, whenever you feel upset, take full responsibility for the emotions that you are experiencing. Get to work as quickly as possible, identifying the programming or the addiction that is leading you to reject what other people are saying or doing. Why are you upset by their words? Take responsibility for this and go to work and say, what's going on? By taking full responsibility, you give your ego and rational mind an entirely different direction in which to operate. They begin to work on helping you to reprogram yourself instead of egging you on to manipulate and fight other people in your life. Now, here's the process to follow in a nutshell. Number 1, ignore the suffering, pinpoint the addiction, reprogram the addiction, and the suffering stops. Simple as that. Explore the suffering. What is it? Why am I irritated? Why am I angry? Why am I upset? Why am I fear-based? Pinpoint that. Is this something I want it my way? It should be my way. They're not doing it my way. I'm very unhappy because things aren't working the way I think they should. Reprogram it to make it to be a preference. I would prefer this. I'm okay with that. It's not an addiction. And you know what? Suffering stops. So in a higher consciousness, we begin to see ourselves separate and apart from all the bondages of these physical senses. You know, the bondage of anger and fear and stress that hold us down. And in the state of consciousness, this higher consciousness, there is no attachment to the world or desire to hold on to it. Now, the more we focus on our desires for good things of this flesh, the material things, the more intense is our illusion of what this world really is. I want to tell you this. Stop looking to always see everything on the basis of a material, physical thing. Work instead on the divinity and the presence of good and God within you, unfolding that. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and everything else will be a byproduct of it. If you are in love, the byproduct of love is going to be a loving world. If you are in fear, the byproduct of that fear is going to be a fear-based world. So really, it's all about centering ourselves in this wonderful place of this is what I want to be and do. And as your thoughts dwell on God and the things of the Spirit, the greater the freedom from limitation will be gaining. And you will be, I'm seeking first the kingdom of God, and everything else is manifesting. Everything else is becoming a byproduct. My success, my material blessings, the energy of money coming to me, all these things are happening as a result of how I am practicing, living out, demonstrating God, allowing God to express in and through me fully. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this class series, and I love all these pointers out for our journey. I hope that you'll be reviewing them in the weeks ahead. So don't let these note packets just go into a circular file. Let it be so that you really have taken them as a resource. Go back and review. I think you'll find that the more you do so, the more they sink in deeper and deeper, and the truth that's there becomes more powerful for your life. Now, if you've enjoyed this class, I'm going to offer a gift in support of the Emerson Institute. You can do this by going to our website at www.cityoflightatlanta.com. Going there, you'll Next Tuesday, we're going to be back once again, joining with you at 7 o'clock for 6 o'clock for another exciting class. We'll be announcing that throughout the week as we share with you about the new opportunities for spiritual growth coming up, and we hope that you'll join us. Now, we'd love to hear what your takeaway is. Anybody have something that you'd like to share about what spoke to you tonight? How about we go to Dr. Carter and tell us what really resonates within your heart tonight?
I loved everything, but tip number 2, take full responsibility for the emotions that you're experiencing. Because too many times we admonish our children when they get upset instead of saying, okay, let's acknowledge that you are upset, and now let's look at it. Let's pull it apart and get to the root of what's causing it.
Beautiful.
So I really like that.
Excellent. How about you, Steve? Do you have a takeaway from tonight's class?
From class 11, the only thing that will change your life, raise your standard. Your life can be too big, play too small.
Your life is too big to play too small. I love that. Great. Anyone else sharing a thought, maybe from one of our students who are viewing?
Yes.
Yes.
Brenda Fink.
Brenda, great to have you with us tonight.
I am living in the present and know all is working for my highest and best.
Beautiful. Amen.
And then Holly Hill.
Holly Hill.
Peace, joy, love, etc. are achieved when we release our attachment to things that are not peaceful, loving, etc. What are you attached to? What would you like to release?
Great. Excellent. Wonderful. We appreciate all these comments. We'd like to know what's really touching your heart, what's speaking to you as we conclude the last session. I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday as we begin again at 6 p.m. on an ongoing journey of spiritual enrichment. We're growing the soul, we're evolving the soul, and I encourage you to continue with us on Tuesday nights in this incredible work through the Emerson Institute. I'm Reverend Dr. Paul Gretz, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next week as we continue this study. God bless you. I know something great is unfolding for you.